out of the storm of when we looked up, because and I would appreciate it for everyone's grab something or anything just to bin it afterwards, if that's okay, and don't leave anything behind you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. So up to now we have covered the basics of the obligation in terms of fasting. So we said on whom it is obliged, when does it start, and what are the things that we need to do. So now we're going to just enter into a little bit more details in some aspects which we need to know about, and also some recommended aspects. So first of all, if you break a fast, it's one of two things. Either you've done it on purpose with no reason, no valid reason, or you've done it with a valid reason. Now if you've broken a fast with a valid reason, you're ill, you traveled, or for the woman who is on her cycle or postnatal bleeding, then it's recommended to make up the fast as soon as possible. Recommended to make up the fast as soon as possible before the next Ramadan. Alright? If you've broken your fast with a reason, it's recommended. If you've broken your fast without a valid reason, okay, then it is must, obligatory. You have to make up the fast right away. Meaning, after Eid, because you can't fast the day of Eid, after Eid, you have to make up the fast straight away. Okay, because when you break it with a no valid reason, you don't have the concession. So you have to make it up straight away. If you have a reason, you have up until the next Ramadan to make up the fast. However, it's best to do it as soon as possible. Why? Because this is a debt on you. And if you were to die or something happened to you, then that's a debt. And it's always, a Muslim should always be looking to be free of debt. Don't allow any debts to accumulate on you, whether it's zakah, whether it's salah, whether it's fasting and so on. Okay? So that's one. Now, recommended acts of fasting. It's recommended to break your fast as soon as the sun sets. Okay? When the sun sets, which means Maghrib time, break your fast as soon as possible. There's no extra reward for delaying it, an extra 15 minutes or an hour or whatever, extra brownie points for going further. No, as soon as and the Prophet ﷺ encouraged this. He said, ما زالت أمتي بخير ما عجلوا الإفطار. As my ummah continues to be in a good situation as long as they hasten the breaking of the fast. And what's the best way to break your fast? With moist dates, rutab, preferably 3. If you don't have 3 moist dates, then 1 moist date, or if you don't have moist dates, then dry dates. If you don't have dates at all, the best thing to break your fast with is then water. Okay? Because that's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So say you don't have dates, don't go for a glass of milk or have your samosa or your pakora or something like that. No, but go for the water, have some water, then dive into the rest of the meal. And also recommended to make dua. Dua, whilst you are fasting, this is a good time because the fasting person is in an elevated state of spirituality, closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So continually make dua whilst you are fasting, but more so when you are breaking your fast, it's a good time to make a fast. Some of the dua that has been narrated, Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftart, ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. That's like a regular dua, but try to also increase the other du'as that you have as well. Also, in this area, it's good that you have a list of dua, a specified list. It's good to have like 3 or 5 dua, your top list, your wish list. that you are always repeating in Ramadan. You know, you have your top 3 dua, you always, whenever you have this time, sujood, after salah, you know, whenever you're in the car, you're in a bus, whatever, you're always making these dua. And some of the righteous people in the past, they said, we used to have specific du'as that we used to aim in Ramadan, and we used to find that when we focused on our dua in Ramadan, next Ramadan would not come until our dua was answered. So it is like almost like a guarantee. There's a story that I want to share with you, if I have time, but I don't have time. You'll see at the end. If we have 1 or 2 minutes, I will share it with you if you're interested to hear that story. So dua. Recommended to hasten your fast, recommended to delay your suhoor. Suhoor is a gift that Allah has given this ummah. The previous nations of Jews and Christians, they didn't have suhoor when they used to fast. So this suhoor is extra. And that's why it's recommended to have suhoor. Even if it's just to drink some water. But preferably have something which is, you know, some food, something that will keep you. Different cultures, different countries, different people will have different types of suhoor. Some have a full-blown meal. Some will have some breakfast, some will have, you know, dates, whatever you take is better. And delay it close to Fajr, but be careful of not overstepping the Fajr line. And that's why some of the ulama, they say, they give you, and some people also, they put it in the calendar, they say Isak time. The real time to stop eating is Fajr. However, give yourself some buffer. A buffer of about 10 minutes is good. Because now that you've all eaten, if you put your tongue on, you say, oh, I still have food. Now, if you had ate right up to the end of Fajr, and Fajr time, the adhan has gone, and they say, oh, and then you ate that food, what's happened to your fast? Broken. Yeah? Because it's a substance that has entered your body in the time that you shouldn't be. So that's why giving yourself a buffer zone, finish your meal, 10 minutes before Fajr, go and wash your mouth. If you're going to brush your teeth, have a good rinse, make sure there's nothing in your mouth. And then therefore you don't have to worry about this thing happening. However, if you are eating right up until Fajr and you stop that, it's fine, but be careful nothing enters after Fajr. Now, if you need to do the ghusl, the ritual wash, it's recommended to do it before Fajr. If you do it after Fajr, it's fine. It doesn't affect your salah, but it's better to do it before. Once you are fasting, and this is something that will be probably addressed next week. So remember, next week is about the spirit of fasting, the inner dimensions and the secrets of fasting. Fasting is not just about not eating and drinking. This is the outward, if you like, the textual things of what you should do. The spiritual aspect of fasting is to refrain from all haram as well. So don't just refrain from eating and drinking, but refrain from lying and backbiting and gossip and anything that's going to affect your a'mal. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants this fasting for you to be in an elevated state. So also make sure that you're not fasting, abstaining from food and drink, but you're breaking your fast by backbiting or slandering others. Also try to leave things which are permissible. Normally there are things that are permissible. You know, playing on your PlayStation or on your mobile, or I don't know, watching television or chatting to your friends, or, you know, these things that are permissible. Try to also reduce those things. That's also recommended. It's a time to control. So that's self-control. It's about doing what's best. If somebody tries to argue with you or to fight you or to just cause you, remember to remind yourself, Allahumma inni sa'im, I'm fasting, and remind him that you are fasting. So just leave me alone. Let me get on with my fasting. It's also recommended to not do the following. Avoid cupping. What's cupping in Arabic? Hijama. Does hijama break your fast? No. But because it weakens you, you know, you're having blood taken. The Prophet ﷺ, actually he did hijama once when he was fasting, so that's showing us that it's permissible. But when you have blood taken and you're fasting, you're weakening you, you're more likely to collapse and not think. So best to not avoid cupping unless you're really super strong and you need it, Allahu A'lam. Don't do any chewing. Now, you know, there are some gums I don't like gums, but personally, I'm anti-gum. But there are some gums that don't have flavor. Yeah, they have them a lot in Arab countries. They're just flavorless gum. Now, if you had that flavorless gum, that doesn't break your fast. Why? Because there's no substance that's entering your mouth. It's just the gum chewing. Okay, like yes. But if it's a flavored gum, then that does break your fast because that's sugar and flavors which are entering your body, so that breaks it. However, it's better not to chew at all. Don't chew the unflavored gum. Also, avoid tasting the food if you can. Tasting the food is different from eating food. Tasting the food is basically you stick your tongue out, you put some food on it. That food, because your tongue is what tastes, it's not your stomach that tastes. Your tongue, you put some food on that, and then you rinse your mouth out, that's fine. Now sometimes people say, oh, the husbands need to do that when they're doing the cooking, isn't it? The husbands, when they're doing the cooking, they might have to taste the food because they don't want to upset their wives by making the food too salty or something like that. So sometimes they will taste the food.
Not the way around. Huh? Not the way around.
Yeah, the husband is the one who cooks. You know. No, but whoever's cooking, whoever is going to be cooking, tasting the food is permissible, but don't swallow the food. So that's the difference. However, if you can avoid it altogether, that's fine. That's better. Similarly, specifically in the Shafi'i madhab, they also encourage you not to brush your teeth. He said it's better not to brush your teeth after dhuhr. Why? Because they said brushing your teeth will cleanse your mouth, it freshens your mouth up, and Allah actually loves the smell of a fasting person. In the hadith, لَخَلُوفُ فَمِ الصَّائِمِ أَطْيَبُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ رِيحِ الْمِسْكِ. The smell that is in the mouth of a fasting person is more beloved to Allah than musk. So Imam al-Shafi'i said, look, because this is the reality, it's best not to remove that smell. So don't brush your teeth after dhuhr. However, if you brushed your teeth after dhuhr, does it break your fast? No. No. It doesn't break your fast, okay? It's better not to fast, but it doesn't break your fast. It breaks your fast if you swallow the toothpaste and you swallow the mouthwash and everything else that's in the bathroom. That will break your fast. But if you're just brushing your teeth, even with toothpaste, remember it's a taste, it's a flavor which you're spitting out, that doesn't break your fast. In Ramadan, it's recommended to be extra generous to your family. You guys are all generous, mashallah, but be extra generous in Ramadan to your family. Be extra good to your relatives, to your neighbors. Try to give more charity in Ramadan, because that's when the Prophet ﷺ used to give more charity. He was the most generous in Ramadan. Try to increase more recitation and study of the Quran, because Ramadan is Shahrul Quran. Try to do i'tikaf if you have the ability to do that. I'tikaf is for both brothers and sisters, so both of them can do i'tikaf. In fact, in a quite a strange hadith, the Prophet ﷺ used to do i'tikaf in his masjid. You might have seen the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. It's quite small, it's not big. So he did i'tikaf. He would have like a small tent in there where he would, like go in. And one day he went, he got used to doing i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan. And one year he went to do i'tikaf, and then he looked into the masjid and he found all these tents in the masjid. He said, what's this? What are all these tents? They said, these are your wives. They're all doing i'tikaf at the same time. So he said, Al-birra arad, is it really that you are seeking righteousness? And are you really trying to do i'tikaf, or you just want to be close to me? And they're all competing. Wives are competing with one another, so they all wanted to do i'tikaf. So actually the Prophet said, you know what? I'm cancelling my i'tikaf this year. Subhanallah. He cancelled it for a bigger purpose. He ended up doing i'tikaf in Shawwal to make up. So anyway, the point being is that women were doing i'tikaf as well, and it's permissible to do that if the masjid has that kind of facility. And more specifically in the last 10 days, because that's the night, according to most ulama, which has Laylatul Qadr. So seeking Laylatul Qadr obviously is a great thing that a person needs to do. Okay, time is running out. I'm just going to mention one thing. What happens if you break your fast in Ramadan? If you break your fast in Ramadan and you are able to make the fast, yeah, then you have to make it. If you did it, like I say, if you did it on purpose without a reason, you have to do it straight away. If you did it on purpose with a reason, then you do it up to until Ramadan. However, if you're somebody who can't fast because you are either chronically ill or you have a terminal illness, then you have to do a fidya. And the fidya means that for every day that you don't fast, you have to feed a poor person. Okay? And that poor person, you'll feed him a meal, basically. A meal for every day, you're going to feed them a meal. And in the past they used to say a mud. A mud is like this, basically, which is like a handful of food of the staple diet. But an average meal that you would eat, you'd have to feed that person for whatever you cannot fast. There is more details in regards to someone who breaks their fast due to intercourse, but because I think due to the nature of this, I don't know if everybody wants to know about this, but you will find this in the book if you want to read it, or if you want to ask the question, I'll answer the question. And lastly, it remains for me to say that Ramadan is a great opportunity, obviously, to get the good deeds from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is aspects which we have to do, and this is what we've discussed today. The fiqh, the do's, the do-nots, how to make your fast sound, and that is something that we have addressed. And by doing this, you are at the basic level. The higher level is to understand the bigger aspirations in Ramadan, what to try and achieve in Ramadan in terms of your spirituality, in terms of your closeness to Allah, in terms of your a'mal. That's something that will be addressed, inshallah, next week. I'm not going to talk about Zakatul Fitr because time has run out. And also there are other aspects of i'tikaf, for example. Again, we can't talk about that because of time. But these are all things that probably will be addressed in due course, because it's good that a person knows those rulings and tries to practice them in their life. I'tikaf is a great opportunity to seclude yourself and to be with yourself, not with your phone in the masjid, which is probably what people do nowadays. They go into the masjid, they're i'tikaf, but they're with the phone. So they're doing i'tikaf on their phone. But rather do i'tikaf, we are secluded. You are isolated from the outside world to focus on your ibadah, to think about yourself. Zakatul Fitr is an important aspect of our practice as well, which we need to know the rules as well, but something that inshallah hopefully addressed in a different session. Jazakumullah khair. I think this is a good opportunity to stop here, and if anybody has any questions, then inshallah we can answer them.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Barakallah feekum. Yeah, we'll start with the questions, but just before that, I'd just like to mention something that after the Shaykh, mashallah, explanation, it's just good to remind ourselves that fiqh in general is a beautiful thing. I know Dr. Umar, mashallah, explained it very, very easily, but we did all notice that after everything that is mentioned in fiqh, there is a dalil, of course. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or dalil in the Quran, or there is the dalil from Quran. So if anyone that is interested in fiqh or knows and read about fiqh, they would know that it's beautiful. It's just literally like math, because when you see how the big scholars talk about fiqh, you would go deep into fiqh, you would know how they came out with that. If something is not very clear, how they came out with that hukum. So we all now have it, like literally on our phone, just by a click of a button, you would know if this is permissible or not. There are lots of things that come out every day in our days, and fiqh would address them, and scholars around the world would know how to deal with them or how to interpret them. So Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna, mashallah, to make this very easy to everyone. And if there is any questions, please let's ask Shaykh Umar. If anyone wants, just raise your hand. Jazakallah khair. We'll start. We had sorry brother, we had a question just to start with our brother, and Shaykh just told him we'll leave it for after. If we start, please.
What's the ruling on swearing during Ramadan? Sometimes you tend to hear people say it breaks your fast. What's the ruling on that?
So the things that break your fast are the things that we mentioned, which is the eating, drinking, any substance that enters the body cavity, vomiting on purpose, or as we mentioned, the intercourse, masturbation. These are things that will break the fast. Things that you do with your tongue which are haram, or indeed with your body, stealing, maybe, I don't know, I hope nobody's going to kill somebody, but if you kill somebody, or even the things that you're mentioning, swearing, backbiting, all these things, they don't break the fast in terms of rules and regulations, but they can injure your fast very badly because it goes against the essence of fasting. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, "Man lam yada' qawl az-zur wal 'amal bih." Whoever does not leave false speech and actions related to false, meaning false practice, then Allah is not in need of him to leave his food and drink. So it's a very scary hadith, which Allah is saying is, you're leaving your food and drink, but you're not leaving all the bad deeds, so Allah doesn't even need your fasting. Allah is not going to, and there is another narration, which I don't think is a hadith, but it is a saying of the righteous people, that some people fast, and the only thing they get from their fast is hunger. Because that's all they're getting. They're not getting reward, they're not getting any benefit. So swearing doesn't break your fast in that regard, but it's something that will hurt your fast.
Yes, bro.
This is kind of off topic, but I'm trying to recently do a deep dive in Islamic studies, and I was wondering if you could refer me some Islamic studies books. So like etiquettes, for example, and maybe like, because there's many big conversations about madhhabs and such, and how they have different views of the world and
Yeah.
aspects.
What are you doing? What's the topic?
It's just in general, because I'm trying to deep dive in Islamic studies, so I'm trying to find out etiquettes.
I see. There's a very good book which is an old traditional book, and that's called Al-Adab al-Mufrad. Al-Adab al-Mufrad compiled by Imam Bukhari. And this book you can find, there's a website called sunnah.com. Sunnah.com. If you go there and look for the book Adab al-Mufrad, which is almost like the unique adab, the unique etiquette. He brings lots of narrations, some of it are hadith, some of it are sayings of the Sahaba or their practices about good behavior. He starts by talking about relations with the parents, and then with relatives, and with neighbors, and then all different aspects which are related to etiquette. So that might be a good point to start.
Any other questions? Yeah, bro.
So in Islam, why do we have prophets? Because I've been wanting to know for a while already.
Okay, yeah, it's a good time maybe to ask that.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our creator. Yeah, He's the one that created us. He created everything in the heaven and the earth. And He communicated to us because He didn't want us to see Him. This is part of our iman, to believe in Him. But so that we understand what He wants from us, He chose people to give them the message, and then they will take the message to the people. So the role of the prophets are to communicate with Allah, sometimes directly, sometimes through an angel, sometimes maybe through a dream, and then they will speak to the people and tell them what Allah wants from them. Alright, so they are like and that's why sometimes prophets are called messengers, because they carry a message. Okay, so that's the role of prophets. Alright?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, bro.
So you mentioned earlier the difference in the timing of intention when it comes to compulsory and sunnah.
Yes.
Siyam. What's the reason for there being a difference?
So there is a narration where the Prophet ﷺ, he entered the house of one of his wives. Some put that as Aisha, some put it as another wife. And he asked them, is there any lunch? Is there any lunch? And she said, we don't have any food. So he said, therefore, I'm going to be fasting today. Or I am fasting. So from this reality, it shows that the Prophet ﷺ didn't have the intention, or the intention wasn't there before Fajr. Rather, it was delayed after the day had started. So they said that this applies for recommended fasts. So with a recommended fast, if you haven't eaten, and before dhuhr time, up to dhuhr time, if you haven't eaten and then you decided to fast that day, then your intention can be made delayed. But in Ramadan, no, because it's an obligation. It's not a question of is there food or no food. You have to make that intention before Fajr.
Yes, brother.
Alaikum salam.
Online, there's a video going around when if you're eating, for example, an apple and the adhan for Fajr goes on, they said that there's a hadith where Muhammad ﷺ says that you should finish the apple instead of throwing it away.
Some there are quite a few narrations actually which give a similar kind of perception. That even some of them say, oh, you know, there were some of the Sahaba were eating their sukoor and the adhan was made and the iqamah was made and the people were praying and this Sahaba is continuing to eat, saying that this is fine. So there are some narrations like this, but these narrations, according to the consensus of the ulama afterwards, these were practices that are not considered mainstream, meaning that there's not a consensus. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says clearly, eat and drink until the white string of the Fajr becomes clear to you or becomes distinct from the black string of the night. Meaning the moment Fajr enters, Allah says eat and drink until Fajr. So the Quran is clear about that. And like you say, the majority of the ahadith in that regards is that once Fajr enters, khalas, you have to stop. So these ahadith, sometimes there are certain narrations which seem strange. In every aspect of Islam, there will be certain small narrations that may seem not quite fitting. Those are considered, if you like, exemptions to the law. So that's why we have our ulama to clarify these things for us, and alhamdulillah, that's their clarification. Any other questions? Yes?
Sheikh, can you hear the story?
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions, so I can give you the story. And we'll end with that. Nobody else have any questions? No? You have one more question?
Yes.
What's your question?
Why do all religions worship the same God, but they call the same God different names in their religion?
So it's related to sometimes related to language, and sometimes it's related to tradition. Like for example, the Jews, they don't speak Arabic, so they speak Hebrew. So in their language they would call God, they would call Elohim, or sometimes they call him Yehovah. So they have different words. Or even like the word, have you heard the word, the name Mikael? Yeah? No? Jibreel? Yeah? So Jibreel is made out of two words, Jabr and Il. Il is the name of God in a different language. So Jibreel means the slave of God, like Abdullah. Or Mikael, Israfil. So they have different languages, different traditions. Some religions have made up names of gods which are not true. Like the Greeks and the Romans, they made up all these different false gods. So those are not the true gods, they're false gods. Some people worship gods that are not gods. So that's why we have these different things. Alright?
Ah, okay. But that was some long explanations.
Okay, I'm going to end then inshallah with a story which I told you about. And this is a story which is a true story. This thing that I just mentioned to you, I used to live in Sheffield, and this is many years ago, probably more than 20 years actually. I gave a khutbah and I mentioned this thing about making the dua and increasing the dua. And then that's it. I gave that khutbah, I went away. Then almost next Ramadan, a brother came to me and he said, I want to tell you what happened with me. I said, okay. He said, I have a very bad neighbor. Okay, very bad neighbor. He was very abusive, he was playing loud music, he was having parties and all these kind of things, very annoying. And I heard what you said, and I used that Ramadan as an opportunity to say, oh Allah, please get rid of me of this neighbor. this neighbor is annoying, and just rid me of this neighbor. And I kept on making that dua. And he said, for the next months, I didn't see anything happening. There's no, there's no indication that anything was going to happen. But literally the month before Ramadan, the next Ramadan, he said all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, police came to the house, and they came and they arrested the guy, and they took him away, and his whole family got evacuated. He said, now I don't know exactly what happened, but he's assuming that they were involved in some sort of crime or some sort of illegal. But literally, he said, before the next Ramadan, the police came and they forced them out of the house, and that was the end of the neighbors. And then he said, I remembered what you had said, and he said, I want to come and tell you this because I was doubting that this practice really comes in, something really happens. And so it did happen, and he wanted to share that. And obviously, that there is an important aspect here, and that is yaqeen. You have to have certainty. When you make dua, when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to have certainty that Allah will answer your dua. If you don't have certainty, then yes, your dua is not going to be answered, depending on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's the point that this guy took that story, he practiced it, and he gave us a modern implication of how that happens.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna. Maybe another moral of the story is tell us where that guy lives, so we don't live near them. So we don't want to annoy them. Jazakallah khair, Shaykhna. And thank you everyone for attending tonight. Jazakallah khair for your patience. And another reminder of the book, if anyone wants to grab a copy of that book, which I've just read about the fiqh of Ramadan from the Shafi'i perspective, please feel free to grab a book and just write your name on the paper. If there is more food and more refreshment in there if anyone wants. Just one last thing before we conclude is just keep us in your du'as. This is our first event as a da'wah committee in Muslim Association of MAB in general. And inshallah there are more to come, and we would love for you to be with us in the coming events. Inshallah we'll be holding an event in February, in mid-February. We'll send you inshallah more details about that. But really, it is you who make this happen. So thank you very much, Jazakumullah khair, and may Allah accept all our deeds, and may Allah make us reach Ramadan inshallah, and be just finish it with inshallah. And know the dunub inshallah. So Jazakumullah khair, and have a great night. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.